The pen is the tool of the journalist. On this show, we call it pens down because this is where the reporters and the presenters become the newsmakers. We turn the tables and put the CCTV cameras on the people that serve you with the news, sports, entertainment, and everything within. They tell you all that they go through, how they even got into journalism in the first place. It's an exciting program, one menu program, journalism journeys. That's what we talk here. Today we are traveling to Nigeria. I have the honor of the presence of the executive director of Weekenders Media Commercial Limited. They are publishers of the Weekenders magazine, which is an online publication, which is a major voice in speaking for the downtrodden in the society. She was also once head of Nigeria Bureau for Sharp Edge News, a US-based online publication, among several other things. Her full profile will be with you on the screen while we go through this conversation. My guest today is Joy Omagha Idam. Thanks for joining me, madam.
Thank you very much, JC.
Right. Here we talk journalism journeys. First of all, how did you discover the journalist in you?
All right. From when I was a child, I had always loved the journalism profession. I loved the glamour that
Wow.
comes with it, the attention. And my dad loved buying the Daily Times back then. So when he's done reading, of all my siblings, I'll go pick the paper. In fact, while he's reading some part, I'll ask him to give me the inside of the paper. So I'll just scan through, and at the clip of my fingers like that, I can tell anybody. I'll gather my older brother and sister and my uncles and aunts and brief them on what has happened in the country for that day or that week. So that was how my passion for journalism started.
Great.
Mm.
How many years have you been at it since you started?
All right. I would say 31 years now.
31 years.
Because I came straight from secondary school into journalism. Now, this was what happened. While I was graduating from a government secondary school, Caro, in the FCT, I was the best graduating student at. And the special guest of honor for that occasion turned out to be the general manager, NTA Abuja. And he was impressed. I think that day I went home with 14 or 16 prizes.
Wow.
Most outstanding student, best student, English, best student, literature, all of that. At a point, the MC said they should get me a seat to just sit by him instead of walking back and forth. So when the special guest of honor was to give his speech, he said, wow, that Joy Omagha Idam blew his mind. And that to appreciate me, he's engaging me with NTA. So myself and the best graduating student, science, got that appointment, yes.
Wow.
But the male that was best student science opted out because his parents wanted him to relocate to US. So I went to NTA, and that was how my journalism career started.
Entering the newsroom as an overall best student in your field meant that it brought quite some pressure on you to deliver to justify the feats you achieved in the classroom. How were you able to narrow the gap between your academic performance and then your delivery on the field to satisfy the expectations?
Well, because I was young, they didn't put me out there immediately. I needed to understudy the older reporters.
Mm.
They put me through the different units, everything about from the scripting to news writing, editing. And because I was very good in English, when the reporters go out and do their story, the older
Mm.
ones, and come back, I usually helped out in either rewriting their story or editing their script
You mean
for them.
from that very young age, you were handling scripts of people who had been on the field for so long?
Yes,
Amazing.
why? Because my dad had a master's degree in social linguistics
Okay.
from
Okay.
UNN, and he
Mm.
also did something in Cambridge.
Mm.
So I think it flowed from into my DNA
It
from
runs through
him.
the blood.
So, yeah, anything English. I have zero tolerance for badly written script.
Mm.
So and he started off as a principal
Okay.
before he ended up as an education administrator in FCDA.
Mm.
So I really picked a lot from him. In
Mm.
fact, my dad will be reading a newspaper. He has his red pen with him. He'll be
Uh,
looking
now, now
He'll be looking at the
that
mistakes.
was
So
a
that was what he
perfectionist to
used
the
to do.
core.
And those of them that loved the fact that I was good, they didn't say, this little girl that's just fresh
Mm.
from secondary school. They will actually give me their script and say, Joy, hey, Joy, please go through my script for me. So I'll do that quickly, and if there are corrections, I'll point it out to them, or tell them, do the intro like this so it can catch more attention.
Wow. But through these years, what assignment, if not one, or set of assignments, will stand out for you as the most challenging?
Well, that would be covering the diplomatic community in
Mm.
Nigeria,
Okay.
because I was a diplomatic correspondent for some years, and
Mm.
then also covering security matters,
Okay.
the army, the
Mm.
police. Yes.
Mm. What, let's talk about the security matters. What about it really was most challenging? That is a standout experience for you.
Well, the for me, it was the fact that if you're not careful how you present your story,
Mm.
you will be inciting a riot or religious crisis. Take,
Yes.
for instance, there's the Boko Haram people just
Yeah.
struck in a community
Mm.
or killed about 100
Mm.
in a church via an explosion.
Yeah.
You would, as a journalist, I will not just go out there and quote the exact number. I
Mm.
could use the word a few persons or several persons.
Mm.
But if you use the actual number,
Mm.
that could spike up a reprisal attack or
Yes.
cause
Fear
anger
and
among
panic.
them.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yes.
Mm.
So it was difficult for me. I knew so number of persons have
Mm.
died, but I can't come out to state that
Mm.
exactly.
Within
Mhm.
these more than 3 decades you've held onto your pen, attrition
Mm,
in the field of journalism has been very high. A lot of highly trained, qualified professionals have abandoned the ship. Some of them have
mm,
found themselves in public relations, corporate communications, or anything that is really ready to absolve them. From where you
mm.
sit, what do you think is accounting for this high rate of attrition in journalism?
Well, what accounts for that from my perspective and what I've seen so far is the fact that in Nigeria, for instance, I'm not proud to say
Mm,
this. I can count on my fingers
mm.
how many media houses actually pay staff their salary.
The same applies to Ghana.
I'm not talking about the government-owned media. Those ones pay. But the
Yes.
private-owned
Private owned.
media,
Yes.
even some state government-owned media, they owe. So I
Mm.
think this is what has stolen most of our colleagues
Mm.
from the pen profession because, my dear, these are family men and
Mm.
women
Mm.
with bills to pay. They have
Yes.
children in school. You don't go to the market and flash your ID card. I'm a journalist. Give me this, and they'll give it to you for free.
Mm.
Money has to exchange hands.
Yes.
In fact, one particular media house owner in Nigeria, I won't mention his name, will give you his ID card and tell you your ID card is your meal ticket. Use it well. He even encourages and promotes blackmail.
Mm.
You see any chief executive with something dicey or fishy, let me know, then they will now follow up. I mean, so things like that have made some journalists to abandon journalism and go for other things, PR, or to organizations,
Mm.
international NGOs where they get paid good money. And some too, by virtue of their merit,
Mm.
performance, were picked by state governments, legislators, or the executive to come serve in
Mm.
one capacity or the other. For instance, the chairman, Nigeria Union of Journalists, FCT
Mm.
chapter, Emmanuel Ogbeche, just recently got appointed as
Mm.
the chief secretary to the governor of Cross River State, where
Oh.
he hailed from.
Mm.
Then the former president of NUJ, Mohammed Garba, who is from Kano State,
Mm.
was appointed commissioner for information for the
Mm.
2 terms of Governor Ganduje.
Mm.
So you see a few pockets like that. And then there was Smart Adeyemi. After he was president NUJ,
Mm.
he joined politics and
Mm.
became a senator. I
Mm.
think he served for 3 terms. Then he
Mm.
attempted governorship, but lost out in the primaries.
Mm.
So you see, the terrain, the environment has not really been favorable
Mm.
for most journalists to practice unless you have that joy, that passion for
Mm.
it. You can't stay on
Mm.
without fun.
Will you say journalism pays? Does it pay?
To some extent, it
Mm.
pays if you have friends in government
Mm.
that can support your organization with adverts. I
Mm.
started off with hard copy of my magazine,
Okay.
but when the PDP that I was getting more patronage from and
Mm.
close to, some of them were booted
Mm.
out of office,
Yeah.
I had to do a rethink and now veered into publishing online.
Okay. Yes.
And to stay afloat,
Mm.
you need to, I had to cut down on my media staffing because
Mm.
I'm one person that believes that a worker is worthy of his or her wages.
Mm.
Even if 1 naira you
Mm.
agree to pay the person, let that 1 naira come every 24th or 25th of the month.
Mm.
So I had to scale down.
Mm. Let me
Mm.
put you on the spot. These 31
Okay.
years, have you at
Mm.
any point been approached with anything, monetary or material, to compromise the facts of any story you were doing?
Oh, yes, severally.
Mm.
And I had to turn it down because I remembered vividly the stories of some journalists in Abuja and in Nigeria that had, and other places in the world that ended up losing their lives
Mm.
because Some journalists believe in blackmail journalism. For
mm,
me, I told myself from day one I joined journalism, it's to promote. I would never blackmail or write any negative thing about any person. And when they come to me like that, I usually tell them, can I get the contact of the other person? Because this story has to be balanced. Yes,
yes.
I want money.
Mm.
I need to drive an expensive car and feel like one of the Abuja big babes, but I'm not going to compromise my name, my father's reputation,
And your integrity.
for, and my integrity for peasantry, 5 million, 2 million, or 10 million. I'll tell them it's not worth it. Once they say, no, we don't have the person's contact or whatever, I'll say, sorry. For me, it's a no no. Every story needs to be balanced. In fact, I will tell you what happened. 2 days ago, one of my friends that also publishes an online publication
Mm,
sent me a story. And I will quote her, said she did the investigation herself. And it had to do with a young lady that she claimed was impersonating one of our former VP, Atiko Abubakar's daughter, and that
mm,
she was using it to swindle people. So she gave me the story. I now went, I looked at it, read it, I published it. When I published it, I sent it to my daughter. And then my grandson also happened to read it, my first grandson. He now said, Grandma, you're not personally involved in this matter.
mm,
You don't carry out this investigation yourself.
mm,
What if this lady just has issues with
mm,
that woman in question,
mm,
and she's just using this to get back at her because she has the power of the media? Don't forget, this is libelous, and if the woman comes after her, she will come after you too as an accomplice
mm,
because you published it. After I heard that, I pulled down. And then the former president of NAWOJ
mm,
also saw the story on a platform. I posted it. So as soon as these three persons, the former president, my daughter, and my grandson said that, I pulled down the story.
mm. Wow.
Because I asked the lady, can I reach the other lady? She said she doesn't have her phone number. So I said, you're not being fair to the lady then. Sorry,
Yes.
I can't use this story. I deleted everything from my web page.
Mm.
So it's better to play safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Let's talk about social media. I know you are quite active on social media.
Yeah.
How has social media changed the face of journalism?
Oh, that's another story. It has to a large extent
Mm,
affected journalism, but it has its goods and bads,
mm,
and the bad surpass the good. The good is that you can be anywhere in the globe and read a story or a report,
mm,
and in a minute you can become instantly famous if
mm.
the story goes viral,
Yeah,
and it can also destroy one's reputation or
that's
an
true.
organization's reputation. And what
Mm,
I've come to see about the social media is that the political elite and class
mm,
have decided to use it against their opponents
mm,
in a negative way. And
mm,
this is why in Nigeria they came up with a law that if you use a negative report
mm,
and they find out it's not true, they would fine your, first they will withdraw your company's license,
Mm,
and you'll go to jail
mm,
for it.
mm.
Mhm.
In Africa, we have richer bloggers than richer journalists. Scarcely
Yeah.
trained people in the use of the media have been able to exact the financial benefits of social media to themselves. What have
Mm.
journalists been doing? Have we been sleeping all this while, or we have remained reticent to the enormous benefit that social media is bringing our way?
I my thought on this is that journalists have refused, some journalists, not
Mm,
all,
mm,
have refused to move on with the trend of time. They've chosen to stay analog.
mm.
The entire globe have moved digital.
Digital.
Yes. So you still find a lot of analog journalists. Like me, I can record, I can do videos with my phone, I can conduct interviews. I publish from my phone, not
Mm,
my laptop.
mm,
Anywhere I go to. In fact, while the event is going on, I have already done my intro, the
mm,
body of the story, and then I conclude and publish on the spot.
mm,
So my journalism and social media has evolved, but there
mm.
are still, unfortunately and sadly, some of our colleagues that have refused to evolve. They choose to stay analog. You can't blame them. And that's where in the digital space
Mm,
rests and lies the money, if
mm.
you know your way.
Yeah.
Mm.
Let's talk about your golden memories. 31 years should have a lot of memories worth repeating. Which of them stand out as gold for you?
All right, for me, that would be having to do PR work for our former president, His Excellency Goodluck Ebele Jonathan.
Okay.
Now, this was what happened. I got to meet him through his best friend and NYSC co-member. They both served together.
Okay.
His name is Otumba Femi Ajayi. So
Mm,
I got to meet Goodluck Ebele Jonathan through him when he was deputy governor. And the moment we met, he said, I have heard so much about you, Joy. Would you be my media eyes in Abuja? Then I was the assistant secretary, Nigeria Union of Journalists in
mm,
the FCT. I said, why not? Anything for you, Your
mm,
Excellency. So from that moment, anytime he's coming to Abuja, he'll give me a call. I'll arrange the media. We'll wait for him at the airport and interview him. In fact, on one occasion, while we
mm.
were interviewing him, Donald Duke, who was governor of Cross River State, was
Yes.
also coming and said, why would you people be interviewing giving the spotlight on the deputy governor? Meanwhile, here is a governor. He now said, it's not me, oh, sir, it's your sister. Oh. She happens to be from your state, so hold her. She's the one behind all of this. So he said, please put me on the spotlight too. It's not always we'll be reading and hearing about Bielsa.
Mm,
We just made joke
yeah.
of that. So working for Goodluck Jonathan in that capacity until he became governor, later vice president and president, just stood out for me.
Mm.
Mm.
If we are to go back into time 40
Mm.
years, would journalism still be your choice for a profession?
247. But there's also a new passion I have.
Okay.
That doesn't mean I will abandon journalism.
Mm,
It is My ability and my love for giving care to
Mm.
older persons.
Okay.
I'm
That is
actually an
charity works.
older person's
Mm.
ambassador.
Mm.
I love to give care to older persons. And what I do is every 2 weeks, I approach an older person I know. I
Mm.
help them clean out their homes, cook for them, eat with them, then interview them to
Wow.
share their story. You know, these are people that used to be in the limelight while they were young. Then suddenly they are retired. Nobody is putting them on the spotlight.
Mm.
And you need to see the smile, the joy on their faces that somebody remembered them. Then I'll do pedicure, manicure for them, facial scrub, just to make them feel loved.
Mm.
But despite all of that, I won't drop journalism.
Mm. One colleague here told me something when I asked him a question about the brown envelope. You
Mm.
know, it has various names depending on the country where you find yourself. In
Mhm.
Ghana, we call it Sole, which is the shortened form of solidarity.
Okay.
In Cameroon, it is called either the brown envelope or gombo. That is, I
Wow.
think, a francophone name for it.
Okay.
In Nigeria, I'm told apart from brown envelope, there is kwa, there is balamu, depending on where you find
They call
yourself.
it kwa.
Right.
They call the small one kwa. Then they call the heavy inducement loot.
Oh, the heavy ones will come through bank alert, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Now,
And depending on who it is, it can be cash
mm,
also. Mhm.
wow.
Yeah.
Now, one colleague told me that the brown envelope is survival for so many journalists, so it shouldn't be touched. Decouple your thoughts from his stance and tell me what your thoughts are on the brown envelope.
Well, for me personally, I have never put qua or
Mm,
brown envelope ahead of my job. For
mm,
me, it's first to do the story. In fact, on a few or several occasions, I turned out brown envelope so I can get more. Like you
mm,
see, I keep telling different organizations for the 6 years I was assistant secretary of the Nigeria Union of Journalists, Abuja chapter. I stood out and stood up for my colleagues.
mm,
I tell every person that wants to do a press conference, if you go to see a lawyer, you pay
mm,
consultancy fee
mm,
before he even listens to what you have to say. If
mm,
he's now to go to court with you, he will tell you how much you give him for each time he needs to go. I remember my kid sister had a case. For every time her lawyer had to appear in court, we paid 50,000, but I had to negotiate it down to 30. And then if you go to the hospital, you pay for your card before the consultant will even attend to you. So I tell them, now, why is it that when it comes to journalism, you expect my colleagues to run your story for you free? I told them, even in Freetown, there's no free lunch. Yeah, so you have to take good care of my colleagues. And I'll tell them this is the minimum, the least you will give to the print, to the radio, and to the TV. If it's good enough for you, we help you call them for the press conference. If you can't afford this, please, maybe I will suggest to them, go look for one media house and give them what you have. Let them air your story. But that for my colleagues, I won't bring them out here and mess them up. So I always stood up for them. And because I know that I had at the back of my mind the fact that 90% of those journalists I'm inviting are not being paid. And they have families, they have wives to look after, they have children to pay school fees for, and they have their own needs to take care of. And then for the ones that have they have side chicks to look after. so so I personally, I don't condemn it, even though it's wrong. But if you appreciate a journalist for a job well done, like me, I usually prefer to be appreciated, because appreciation money, if they give you brown envelope, it could just be 10, 20, 30, or 50K.
Yeah.
But if it's appreciation for a beautiful story, that one now comes in the form of loot. It runs in hundreds of thousands, if not a million or thereabout. So what I'll just tell my colleagues is, don't cheapen yourself before the public. You are addressed the way you dress,
Yes.
first and foremost. From the moment you walk into that person's office to interview him, he starts analyzing everything about you, the way you're dressed, your composure, and it will determine how much he will give you. Though a few years back, I interviewed a House of Rep member. And when I was leaving, I dressed very well there. When I was leaving, I brought with me two other persons. When I was, he gave an envelope and said, "This is 200,000." I said, "Thank you very much, sir. Don't worry. I didn't come here for the money. I came here to interview you because I heard he was doing something about the girl child, and that caught my attention. I'm passionate about anything girls, boy child, and women. So I said, whether you give me money or not, this is something that gives me joy. I will promote it." So I told him, "Thank you very much. I'm not being rude, but please keep the money." So I went, I ran the story. I even gave it to a few other media houses, like about 5 or 6 used it. So people kept calling him from all over. He was so happy. Do you know, from 200K, it became 2 million naira.
As appreciation.
Yes.
That was your loot.
Mm-hmm. So I now brought out and gave to the other media houses that used the story. So the way me and my colleagues present ourselves. Yes, times are hard, there's no money in the pocket, but your presentation will send a strong message to the person, and he will have a rethink. Yeah.
Abuja holds the head office of several media houses in Nigeria, and there are a lot of women that head most of the media houses, which is a very interesting development and an exciting one for that matter. I hosted a colleague here who is also into women's rights advocacy. And her problem was that despite the fact that women seem to be in the majority in terms of such command positions in media houses in Abuja, women still remain underreported within the media. And she gave an example. Women who are within the top echelons of their organizations, more often than not, shy away from the media. Some are hesitant to talk. Some are not too sure whether what they will say will be reported right or not done right, or it will cost them their job, or what. What is happening? Why are women, especially those who have found themselves in such command positions, hesitant sometimes to grant media the audience?
I think all of that borders on the fact that some women in terms of affairs have been unnecessarily dragged
Mm,
and flung in journalism
mm,
by the media. And
mm,
so most of them shy away from even if you want to talk to them, they will just tell you no comment. But you see, for such women, I know how to get them.
mm,
You don't just go directly that you want to interview them. You
mm,
start with, every woman wants to be appreciated. You
mm,
start with appreciating their style of dressing.
mm,
And then you praise them.
mm,
There's nobody who doesn't love publicity. You praise them.
mm,
You praise them, you appreciate them for if there are one or two things they've done in their agency that stands out, you talk about it
mm.
before you now go into asking your question. You will even discover that the woman will start telling you more than you want to.
um,
So it's just about massaging their ego
mm,
and letting them know that the media is your friend, not
mm,
enemy. Not the
mm,
kind of friendship police tells you that the
mm.
police is your
Meanwhile, the same police also says every visitor to the police station is a potential suspect.
my brother. No be small.
After 31 years, how long do you want to travel with your pen before dropping it?
Ooh, for as long as there's life in
Mm,
me.
mm,
Mm,
mm. That is like a marriage, lifetime affair for you with journalism.
exactly. Yeah. In fact, I'm married to journalism.
Mm,
Journalism is my first love
mm,
and my passion.
wonderful.
Mhm.
Do you support calls for the licensing of journalists? Should journalists be licensed?
Exactly. If other professional bodies
Mm,
are licensed,
mm,
I think journalism bodies should be too, so as to streamline and and fish out the fakes
mm,
from amongst us.
mm. Now,
Because I think
is there no downside to any absolute call for the licensing of journalists? Now, I am going to give you the perspective a colleague shared with me here. He is
okay.
looking at it this way. The politicians we deal with in Africa, particularly, are
Mm,
very smart and creative.
mm,
Some of them can easily smoke screen themselves behind the licensing bodies, which we think are made of colleagues, and use
mm.
it for their own vendetta or, revenge missions, such that journalists that are seen as critical, those whose brand of journalism is considered adversarial to their cause, will be
Mm.
frustrated from either getting renewals or even being licensed at all.
All right, you see, that's like one of the things that happened here
Mm,
in Nigeria.
mm,
Before now, we used to pay 5,000 naira as our annual professional fee
mm,
renewal.
mm,
Suddenly, they met in Kano, um, revised our constitution,
mm,
and increased the fee from 5,000 naira to 25,000. And it was deliberate, just like you said,
mm.
to keep some people off in a situation where most media houses are not paying salaries.
Yes.
Then you now increase the professional fee. Even that 5,000 was still difficult for some people to bring out and pay. Now you're charging 25,000.
Hmm. Wow.
Mm.
That's did you members suspect that there were some unseen hands behind this manipulation?
We know it's deliberate. It's
Mm,
ahead of our forthcoming election. And it is targeted at private journalists working in private media, because those working for government would not be affected, as they already have their salaries and their professional fee is deducted at source.
Oh, I see.
So they want to remove as many opponents and potentials as possible.
Mm, mm.
Mhm.
I think it's everywhere. You have just painted the picture in Ghana too. I mean, all sorts of shenanigans are put in place to ensure that favorites reflect on the role of registers so that they can vote in a
Mhm.
certain direction.
Exactly.
Political ownership of the media. Politicians and politically exposed persons now own big media establishments. A lot are still setting them
Exactly.
up.
Hmm.
Is there a downside to it? Are we caught in trouble? Are we sitting on a time bomb with this kind of development?
Well, the truth of the matter is that you cannot stop them from owning their media houses. The
Mm,
reason is, once they've met all the requirements,
mm,
the law says grant them the license to practice or
okay.
to own their media house. So
Mm,
it's for the non politician, like in Nigeria, the major big media houses
mm,
are owned by politicians. The Sun newspaper belongs to Ojus or Kalu.
yes.
The Nation newspaper belongs to our current president,
And
His Excellency.
TVC television also belongs to him.
CBC also belongs to him.
Mm,
So you see, you can't stop them. The AIT and Ray Power belongs to the late High Chief Raymond Dokbesi,
mm,
which he used to promote and is still promoting the PDP, you know. Though in
mm,
his own case, he chose to remain a godfather,
okay.
supporting from behind. Yeah.
Mm, mm,
So you can't really stop them
mm,
as long as they meet. It's quite sad and unfortunate, but it's the person who owns the money, who has the
mm,
money, that can
yeah.
set up a media outfit.
Mm,
So
mm.
you can't really stop them.
My final question, maybe. With
Yeah.
Nigeria as a case study, give
Mm.
me your general assessment of the quality of journalism in Africa using Nigeria as a case study.
Oh, very, very good question.
Mm,
Journalists in Nigeria have evolved drastically. You
mm,
have a whole lot of them.
mm,
Unlike what we had 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, you
mm,
have more journalists being core professionals.
mm,
They are going to school to study journalism, mass communication, media arts, and the like,
mm,
public relations and advertising and all of that. And they are taking it to doctorate degree level now.
mm,
So you come into a newsroom, it's no longer what used to obtain in the past.
mm.
Secondary school holders or non-professionals. Now you have core professionals, highly educated journalists in the newsroom.
Right.
And I think that's also the trend in most African countries.
Mm. Maybe this is the final. Forgive me. Let me put you on the spot. You've done 31 years. That's a wealth of experience in the field. And
Mhm.
by virtue of the diverse experiences you've had, television and the rest, you are a
Mhm.
multimedia journalist.
Yeah.
Are you thinking or planning, or is there any desire to go into academia to teach the next generation of journalists that are coming? Is there any such plan? Because you cannot harbor this all to yourself without giving back to society?
Well, I have actually thought about this,
Mm,
but it's not as in doing full-time lecturing.
okay,
I would rather say mentorship.
okay.
I wish I've been doing informally, but
Mm,
I would want to take it a step further.
mm,
We have the Nigerian Institute of Journalism
mm,
and International Institute of Journalism. All I need to do is just discuss with the president of NUJ,
mm,
and from time to time I would stop by and do 1 or 2 or 3 hours with them, practicals, share experiences with them, entertain questions, and generally encourage them. And these two I would want to do with universities that have mass communication departments,
mm.
maybe liaise with the VCs and their heads of departments to get clearance to do that. Yes. I
Wow.
wouldn't want to go down with all the knowledge and experience without sharing it. And
That's right.
I've been working on a book,
Mm.
my experience in the journalism journey.
We'll be waiting for that. The world
The good,
awaits.
the bad, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Oh dear. This has been Pens Down. Here we talk journalism journeys. Today we travel to the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, Nigeria. Joy Omagha Idam. I hope I got the middle name right.
Yes, you did.
Yes. She is one of the big fishes in Abuja. Solid, thoroughbred, well experienced, and knowledgeable in the field. She's taking us through her walk through penmanship. It's been a lot from television to online and several things in between. She's had experiences and she shared quite a number of perspective on other matters that bother on the media. Thanks a lot for your time on Pens Down.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Stephen.
Right.
I'm glad you had me. I appreciate.
We are also truly grateful. We'll be
Thank
back.
you.
We'll be back next time with another edition. And we'll have a different colleague join us. We'll still be talking about that one thing, journalism journeys. Stay tuned and bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.